Hey Gearheads, and welcome to Garage Talk, a discussion about all things automotive. I'm Cory.
And I'm Matt. And each week this podcast will serve as a catalyst for discussion on all sorts of topics that grind our gears, rev our engines, or just need a bit more conversation.
This one is another interesting one. It's another fun article I have found from our friends over at Car and Driver that I felt, as you just said, needed a bit more conversation because when I saw it, GM fanboy that I am, I immediately took offense to the clickbait of the thumbnail for the article on social media because the article is titled 20 Biggest Automotive Flops of the Past 30 Years. And wouldn't you know, every single image in the thumbnail to get you to click and read the article was a General Motors product. Needless to say, there are some GM products on this list.
Yeah.
But it is not 20 GM products.
It is
on
not
this list,
20. No.
as that headline and the image would allow you to believe. So this may be a little cathartic of an episode for you, Mr. Fumoko over there, because I believe you're going to have a whole lot of fun ragging on the General for this one.
Well, so I'm thumbing through the list right now. There's already some that I strongly disagree with.
Same here. Which, to be fair, I believe their definition of flop is more sales. Well, I guess that would translate into public perception. But as gearheads, there are, like you said, several on this list that we're just kind of scratching our head like, what? Like, why does that exist here? And others that are, well, quite obvious. So, do you want to jump in and go 1 through 20 as Car and Driver has them ranked? And I do believe we'll spend a lot more time on some than we will on others.
Probably so. That's probably the safest bet. Some of these I don't know at all. So.
Yeah, like the very first one.
Yeah.
Which, I'll just go ahead and throw it out there, is the Aptera Motors 2E, which is a spaceship on wheels,
Pretty
more
much,
or less.
Airplane cockpit.
With it looks like it could very well be a trike chassis, and it's just enclosed.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of
yeah. But I'll just read the information that they give on it, and maybe we'll just move on to the next one. This is a California-based company that technically existed from 2004 to 2011, so they're not that far gone. Just a decade.
Right.
But they never produced a single customer car. They had tons of prototypes, of which this is one. And Car and Driver was actually able to get their hands on one in 2009, but never really saw the light of day. So I believe you can add a whole lot more cars and brands to this list, given that this is on the list, because they never made anything.
Right.
Airplane joke, pun intended, this one never got off the ground. It just womp womp.
Yeah.
Like that joke just tanked right out of the gate. So they tried for better part of 7 years and never quite made something that consumers could get behind at a price that could be attainable.
Ate up a lot of tax dollars in the process too. So
Yeah.
Anyway.
We're going to stay. I'm not going to say those two dreaded letters just yet. So
General Motors? Oh.
No. See, those are two words. Not anyway.
Oh.
So speaking of General Motors, number 2 on the list does indeed come from the General. And this one's a little sad to me. I always felt like this was a pleasing car. It wasn't just something overly exciting, but is more a sign of the times than it was anything else. And that is the Buick Cascada, which...
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Most people are like, the Buick what?
Yeah.
know, because
Cascadia. What?
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
It's
Cascada. It was introduced for 2016. So again, not that old. And it was a 2-door Buick, something very rare as of late. It was a soft top convertible Buick, something also very rare.
Yeah.
And only had 200 horsepower behind it. So this would have done really well in the era of the first gen Chrysler Sebring, which sold like crazy.
Yeah. Early 2000s, late 90s.
Yes. I think Buick was just a decade late with this one, trying to reinvigorate the brand. Because, like I said, it was an appealing car, but really just never found a home. Convertibles are kind of dying out, especially soft top convertibles. I could probably count on my two hands, if I even need that, the amount of soft top convertibles you can actually get right now.
I don't know. The Jeep and the Bronco are pretty popular.
Jeep, Bronco, but traditional soft top convertibles. So I'm thinking Camaro, Mustang.
Right.
The new Mercedes SL that was just unveiled is, believe it or not, a soft top convertible. Beamer, the BMW makes a soft top. Was it the 4 Series? And,
Porsche.
Okay. And then there's what? I'm sure we're missing quite a few here, but it seemed like at one point in time, everybody.
The Murano.
No.
Why isn't that on this list?
Exactly. Like there are so many omissions to this list, but spoiler alert, that is one of them.
Oh man.
I would much more readily put the Murano Cross Tour Cabriolet, whatever they called it, on this list before I'd put this Buick, because it didn't look bad. It wasn't especially high price. The problem was that it was a Buick at the time that Buick was kind of going through a transformation as it was. Soft top convertibles were going by the wayside. Convertibles really, and then cars in general. Like I said, it came out in 2016, and brands now here in 2021, 2022 are killing cars left and right. The General being one of them. The Impala's gone, the Malibu's gone, the Spark is gone,
the only Ford car that there is the Mustang now.
Right. So it's just, like I said, GM was about 10 years behind, if not more, with this. And like I said, rather appealing vehicle.
Yeah, it looks good. So I do think, and I think you mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, this is primarily looking at how many they sold,
right,
as the point with which they ended up on the flop list. So 7,153 in 17, and
in 2018, 4,136.
So
yeah, kind of hard to make a business case for a vehicle at that point. And then, of course, got the axe in 2019.
Not even covering the cost to assemble those things.
The next one
should not be on this list.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because also a General Motors vehicle, also a convertible, but not soft top, and that is the Chevrolet SSR. And for those of you completely unaware as to what this is, it is a retro-styled truck, convertible roadster thing. It was the ultimate crossover because, again, it was a 2-door, 2-seater, hardtop convertible with a truck, quote-unquote, bed trunk, because it had a permanently fixed hard one-piece tonneau cover that lifted like a trunk, had a carpeted trunk, basically. Yeah. Like, it was the
big,
best.
Broad fenders.
Yeah.
And
think Plymouth Prowler style design in that, it's that old school, very curvy, just pretty cool
retro
looking.
Modern kind of for the era, for sure.
And like I said, best 2-seater convertible of the time, because you could get it with a big V8. In the latter years, you could actually get it with a manual transmission. When you put that hardtop convertible down, you didn't give up a single bit of cargo volume in that huge trunk. Like, it was the perfect weekend getaway vehicle. And, oh yeah, by the way, it was V8 powered rear wheel drive and you could get a manual transmission. Like, everything about it screamed, yes, get it and cruise down Woodward Avenue in it.
Right.
I can't speak tonight. And yet, here it is on the 20 biggest automotive flops of the past 20 years. Like,
So down at the bottom of what they're talking about here, and I'll just kind of read through this, I want to correct a few things that they have in their list here. The SSR may have been built on the same platform as the Trailblazer, but a 300 horsepower 5.3 went in place of the V6. The Trailblazer did not come with a V6. It came with an inline 6.
correct.
4.2 liter inline 6.
Get it
Great
together.
engine if you kept the oil changed in it.
Yes.
After customers and journalists complained of the sluggish performance, the 4,700 pound, which is the reason it felt sluggish.
Right. It was very, again,
It was porky.
convertible hardtop, truck-based platform.
Right.
So there was nothing light about it.
Yeah.
By design.
And then even with the 390 horsepower, and this is how they conclude it, even with the 390 horsepower 6-liter and an optional 6-speed manual, it wasn't enough to overpower the uncustom convertible truck rod's inherent dorkiness.
See,
That's like...
that stabbed to the heart
Yeah.
right there, because I still get excited every time I see one of these driving
yeah.
around town.
Oh,
I'm
heck
like,
yeah.
oh, there's one. In fact, previous job, when I was leaving work, we had security checkpoints in and out. One of the security guards had a kind of chameleon blue-green
Oh, yeah.
colored one, and I complimented it every time I passed by and talked to him. I was like, man, I really love your truck. I'm going to have to track that guy down and be like, I've got to review your car for the channel, because I love it. I love it. And I absolutely would have one with the 6-liter V8 and the 6-speed manual, because it's just
Why not?
so cool. So cool. Yes. As much as we love the Prowler, I would say I probably love that more, because all of the Prowler shortcomings, which there were several, the V6 engine,
No storage.
no storage whatsoever. You had to have the matching trailer to have any sort of storage. This made up for it. So 390 horsepower V8, wonderful sound, and plenty of storage, top up or down. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, this next one also hurts my heart.
Yeah.
Like, should not be on this list, correct?
It's the sexy Corvette.
Yes. It is the rich person's Corvette. It is the I'm too good for a plastic bodied
Yeah.
bow tie of a vehicle.
Even though it was covered in plastic.
Yeah, I know. Give me the wreath and crest. Give me a Cadillac, the standard of the world, as I believe they were trying ever so hard to make a thing still at this point in time with their quote-unquote art and science design language. It is the ever so angular, ever so wedge-shaped Cadillac XLR and Cadillac XLR-V, which, again, this one hurts my heart because a senior in high school art project that I had to do was a massive pencil graphite drawing of something, and I chose this car.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved the idea of a performance Cadillac.
Yeah.
When,
Oh, yeah.
let's face it, at the time, they didn't really have much. The STS and the DTS and the CTS were your other options. They did have the CTS-V, most famous for the chase scene in the second Matrix movie. They had that. I don't even think that was a CTS-V. I think that was just a regular CTS. But yeah, a true performance Cadillac, 2-door, again, hardtop convertible, built right alongside the Corvette in the Bowling Green, Kentucky factory. And I loved it.
The Corvette had the better motor.
It did. This had the
North Star.
The North Star, unless you got the V motor, or the V XLR-V, which that one got the.
Well, it says it's a supercharged North Star V8.
Oh, well, there you go.
So.
See, that just shows how far removed I am from my high school lust of this car. But I actually, again, another life, was pool cleaning and doing pool service work around here in East Texas. And one of my customers had a beige one. That was the only demerit against it, is that it was beige. And I told her every time I saw her, I was like, man, I absolutely love your car. And so did she. And man, it was the best looking application of this very angular art and science style design that Cadillac brought to the table.
It would have looked better with a little ducktail wing on the deck lid. That would have helped the whole.
Yep.
And you could have made it sharp and angular and kicked out at the ends and all that, but that would have helped a lot.
So
a whole 15,460 of these little gems exist.
Yeah, and I probably. So this was set to go up against the likes of the Mercedes SL, which I just mentioned. It's rolling out again, a brand new one with a soft top convertible, believe it or not. And that's kind of where this fell short, because the investment in Cadillac wasn't quite there to the level it is now, because the up step in luxury from Chevrolet to Cadillac now, it's a much bigger step than it was in the mid to late 2000s. And then this was just kind of plain. Like there wasn't a lot to it. The interior was just so. It was General Motors quality. It was nothing just outstanding to look at. The materials weren't Mercedes SL quality. So it was trying to punch above its weight class, and it just never did, because when you're talking a Mercedes SL shopper, budget and just being friendly to the wallet isn't necessarily a selling point.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of these, because we're looking at yet another from the same era, the vehicle after this.
Yes.
This was also around when the bailouts happened, and GM had to restructure and all that garbage too. So I think the combination of the poor quality,
trying to fight above its weight class,
and then overpriced everything in the process, just ended up biting them pretty hard. And unfortunately, this was one of many that no longer exist. I am curious, though. I would love to see a rendering of a C8 XLR.
That's funny, because one actually exists.
Does it?
We'll put links in the show notes. It's the bright orange. It basically looks like a less wildly styled along the side, so they kind of cut down some of the angles. But it looks like you put a CT5V Blackwing nose on a Corvette, and it actually looks really good. It has fans clamoring for,
oh man,
it's time to bring back the XLR.
And I mean, with the level that the Corvette is on the cheap end of things, where it starts in the low 60s, I mean, you could make a base XLR now for mid 90s pretty easy, and then have a top end car that would
120,
be 130, 140 even. That would be nuts. And the CTS-V supercharged V8, that would be amazing.
And then you and I have already sampled a C8 and talked about how it is the best interior General Motors has put in any modern era car. So yet another shortcoming of the old XLR that is more than rectified in its current platform. If ever there were a time, now is the time to bring back the XLR.
I think Cadillac would struggle to make it nice enough to be called nicer than what the C8 already is.
They could go about fixing the love it or hate it giant center strip of buttons, which
Yeah.
they're already talking about fixing for the Corvette as it is. The
Put a
new
bigger screen in it and put most of that stuff in the screen, and it
oh.
makes it fancier, right?
No, I can't. No.
That's the trend.
No. Even I, the techie, like, give me. There are some things you just need hard buttons for,
Yeah.
and my wife's 2014, for example, has heated seats and a heated steering wheel, which are controlled through the like 8.4-inch touchscreen. There are no hard buttons for it, and so getting in the car, it's December now, getting in the car in December, if it's cold outside,
Not like it is right now.
flip a coin on whether or not it's actually cold outside.
Right.
If you want to put the heated seats on, you either need to do it before you put it in reverse to get out of the garage and driveway, or you need to wait until you're already out because the screen also does double duty as your reverse backup camera. So yeah, just one of the many reasons why not everything has to be done within the screen. There is a volume knob so you can adjust the volume, but you can't change what you're listening to. There's just so much you can't do. Even the Copilot can't even do it because when you put everything in the screen, it's just overkill. It's like a Swiss Army knife. It's not great at any one thing, but it does
Several
lot of things.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, gosh, can we get away from the gentleman? This list.
Well, okay. Before we dig into the notes of the author in this particular one, what killed this vehicle, Cory? This is the the hybrid Chevy Tahoe.
The overly tacky styling and stickers of it. They could have just made it a Tahoe and not bragged about the fact that it was a hybrid.
It had a whole different front fascia. It had different running boards. It had different wheels.
It had a sticker going the
tacky
length
little sticker down the
of
doors.
the wheelbase. Yeah, so I get the front fascia and the aerodynamic aspect of it.
That could have been solved with just that black plastic trim. Make it a little taller, and it would cover around the bottom on the normal. Same thing. Just make it a little longer and be done with it. But I have never liked the look of these. I can just about spot them from a mile away. And coupled with them being 350 pounds heavier than the gasoline-only counterpart.
Which has to do completely with the drivetrain of it. And but because I remember that they had thinner seats because they did all different variants of this. There was an Escalade hybrid, there was a Silverado hybrid, and then there were the GMC versions too. So the Yukon and Sierra hybrids. It was a competent idea with very poor execution.
Horrible execution.
To the point that nobody liked the look of it, so nobody paid the cost of it. And it did get an increase in fuel economy. It was a very interesting hybrid system, and I don't even think they go into the details of it in this one.
Not really.
But it wasn't your standard hybrid. It was, oh gosh, now I'm going to have to pull it up. Hold on. We will, please hold.
So while you're looking that up, I'm rifling through here, and it says, our long-term diesel Mercedes GL320 of the time, comparable in size, hit 22 miles to the gallon regularly and could tow a bigger boat behind it. So a more capable, albeit higher price tag, but more capable, more competent, better or more efficient vehicle out of the diesel, which I would argue it uses less diesel anyway when it runs because it's a more efficient combustion process. I won't get into that again, but all
right, so this had regenerative braking, as we know with EVs is kind of the normal.
Right.
And they were very popular on, that's how the Prius operated at the time. And, you could get the little screen inside that showed where the power was going and coming from. So it had regenerative braking, it had hybrid motors in the transmission. So the motors were actually in the transmission, and they acted as generators to decelerate the vehicle by applying resistance and capturing that energy and turning it into electricity, which it stored on board with those heavy batteries that increased the weight of the overall vehicle.
Right.
Even though they did like crazy weight savings, like I said, thinning out the seats and doing all kinds of crazy stuff there. It was actually an awarded powertrain. Like this powertrain and idea won awards for, it was like the Canada's Green Car of the Year or something like that.
Wow.
It was highly advanced because it came out in 2008 was the first year model, which again, nobody was really thinking hybrid full size anything at that point.
No.
And now we've got the hybrid 2022 Tundra. We've got the Power Boost F-150. You and I are wondering when the Expedition is going to get that exact same powertrain.
Yep.
Like it's starting to proliferate the entire market.
Oh, yeah.
And here the General is with no plans currently for a hybrid Tahoe, Suburban, Silverado. We do have an EV Silverado on the very near horizon.
Right.
Should be teased to us in the next month or so. But yeah, again, they were a little too early on this one. They were too late with the Buick earlier, and they're way too early on the trend of things here with the Tahoe hybrid and all its relatives.
For people who are buying a new Tahoe, Suburban, Escalade, Yukon, they're able to afford the fuel economy.
Yes and no, because, you know, you and I joke about full-size rigs being the family vehicle of Texas, and, like, I would lose count of how many Tahoes and Suburbans I see driving around here.
Yeah.
And the entry price to them has crept well over $50,000.
Yeah.
For a family vehicle. So,
but that's what I'm saying. You can get a very well-equipped Kia Carnival or Chrysler Pacifica or Honda Odyssey,
Toyota
and it'll
Sienna.
move. It'll move just as many people. It'll do it more efficiently. It'll haul all your stuff. It's more comfortable. Like, the only thing it doesn't do is tow well.
Or necessarily look as cool.
Well, but that's my point.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but
there are cheaper ways of moving people if people is the focus.
Right.
So if you're able to afford a Tahoe or an Escalade, you're able to afford the fuel to go in it. So why were they so worried about making it hybrid? So
it's because we were creeping into the $4 and $5 a gallon gasoline of the time. Because again, 2008, you remember what was going on back then. Gas prices were creeping up so high.
Yeah.
And I had an '07 Silverado at the time. I know that was one of the reasons why I got rid of it. So same platform as this.
Yeah.
I had the 5.3 V8 in it, and I believe $4.30 was where I said, okay, I'm no longer cleaning pools. I'm no longer needing a pickup. And I ditched half of the cylinders and the bed and got an Equinox for a whole year and wasn't happy with that. But yeah, so it really was just the culmination of being too early, being too ugly.
Yeah.
Just not reading the market well, which is a shame because, like I said, it was an award-winning powertrain.
Yeah, yeah.
Finally, goodness gracious me.
Officially,
I'm gonna breathe a little now. We're away from the GM stuff. For now.
Officially, the ugliest.
Oh yeah.
Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, anything.
Sadly, I think
possibly ever.
This entry on the list is what put the nail in the coffin of the Chrysler brand, which so they've teased us there is an all-electric Chrysler coming, but in the current world,
it'll be a Pacifica.
We shall see. It'll be a crossover. We know
there's already a hybrid, so
Yeah, but there is an all-electric Chrysler coming. So current lineup of things: cars are dead, which is all Chrysler had besides the
Yep.
then Town and Country, now Pacifica. So the 200, which was the same platform as the Dodge Dart, which was the same platform as the Jeep Cherokee that is in my garage.
Right.
The cars bit the dust. The Cherokee stayed around. The Chrysler 300 is ancient. It's
Yeah.
a recycled Mercedes E-Class from decades, plural, ago.
Yeah. And it only survives in its siblings, the Challenger, the Charger, and the Durango.
Yeah. So, like, if you want a Chrysler nowadays,
You get a
slim
Pacifica.
pickings. Yeah, slim pickings. And in a world where or SUVs are all the rage, the Jeep brand has taken over that market away from Chrysler because they have totally gone upscale. You and I have been in the new Grand Wagoneer and Wagoneer and the Grand Cherokee L, and the interiors on those.
They're ridiculous.
Yeah, truly an American Range Rover. Like they are very upscale.
With a Range Rover price tag.
Yeah, I know. And so that's kind of stealing that market share from within the Stellantis portfolio away from Chrysler. So whereas Chrysler used to be the parent brand, they're struggling. They can't introduce a luxury SUV because Jeep's already there, and they'd be stealing away from the Jeep brand or the Wagoneer brand.
Right.
They can't really go trucks because Chrysler and trucks don't really go together. Cars are dead. So, like, what is there? And then the fact that the last time they tried to do an SUV, you get
this
entrant number 6 on the list in the Chrysler Aspen, which, if you don't know what that is, no apologies necessary because it was built on the worst generation Dodge Durango.
Right.
In my opinion, and by the opinion of the sales numbers. So my side gig, I write articles for vehiclehistory.com, and I did research on the history of the Dodge Durango. And wouldn't you know it, this generation Durango, second gen Durango, like completely dropped off of the face of the earth. First gen was selling over 200,000 units a year. And then they restyled them, made them bigger, portlier.
Oh, man.
I always likened them, they had very Razorback styling. And no, I'm not talking about the mascot. I'm talking about the actual animal. I always called it the Razorback Durango. And the fact that they put lipstick on a pig and called it a Chrysler in the Aspen is, it's just terrible.
And again, this is the late 2000s, so it's poor Daimler quality. It's this platform, which the Durango of the time, the reason people liked it so much was because of its size and capability. You could get one with a V8, which meant it would do all the towing and hauling you needed it to. And when they went to this bigger platform, which I believe it was the half-ton Ram based frame, and all the underpinnings were a pickup, basically, for this bigger size.
It was based on the Dakota, the midsize Dakota, believe it or not.
This one?
Yeah, it's huge, but so was the Dakota of the era.
I know the Dakota got a little bigger, but I didn't think it got this much bigger.
Yeah, it was a Dakota.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a very big midsize, bordering on full size. But the Chrysler version of it was only made for 3 years, so 07, 08, and 09. And I believe they literally made a handful of them for the 09 model year because, like I said, they literally just dropped off the face of the earth. And it's just kind of sad what happened with both platforms, because I absolutely loved the first gen Durango, and it's just a travesty what they did to him for the second gen. And I love the current model Durango, especially the Hellcat powered one. So yeah, it's just a shame. Again, 2004 model, Durango, on which this 2007 to 2009 Aspen was based, was the worst Durango ever as listed by carcomplaints.com.
Yeah.
So, like, this one just totally got panned across the board. So, here are the numbers for the Durango version. 2004 calendar year, they sold 137,000 units,
Okay.
which is okay, but considering, like I said, the previous generation sold twice that, that's quite a hit.
Right.
Especially as, people were migrating to SUVs and then the fuel crisis and all that good stuff. So 137,000 units. By 2009, the Dodge version, the more popular version of this platform, they sold 3,521.
Wow.
And in calendar year 2010, so all the leftovers that just hadn't sold off the lot yet, 572. So, yeah.
So they're collector's items.
Yes. I'm actually surprised how many Chrysler Aspens I see around here in East Texas.
And they are all ragged out with yellow headlights and missing body panels and mismatched wheels and
again,
busted windows. And
like I said, the Dodge Durango was the more popular, and they sold 3,000 of them in 2009.
Yep.
So the 2010 model year altogether, there were no Durangos. It was officially discontinued and killed. And then, what do you know, 2011, they stretched the Jeep Grand Cherokee platform, and we have the current iteration of the Dodge Durango.
Which is so much better.
And it hasn't really changed since 2011, and that in itself is built off, again, an old Mercedes ML at the time platform. So, again, very old Mercedes technology, but it just shows to go how the Mercedes engineers over-engineer stuff, because the Stellantis engineers were able to get 2 decades worth of life out of these platforms. So just all around impressive, but this certain Chrysler Aspen, not so much. Yes. Chrysler's TC by Maserati. So this
cool looking car.
It really is. And it is not the first time an American luxury car company has paired with an Italian company to make a convertible. Can we say Cadillac Espermonte? Anyone? There was a place here in Tyler that used to have 2 or 3 Pininfarina designed Cadillacs out in front of the shop, and I would see them anytime I went downtown Tyler, and I always they put a smile on my face because I knew that they were Pininfarina designed American cars. And so here we've got basically a Maserati with Chrysler badging, and
it's actually got a lot of really good tech for its age. For 89, this was a late 80s to early 90s run for this rig. For 89, the TC sported a 200 horsepower turbocharged 2.2 liter 4-cylinder with the Maserati designed 16-valve cylinder head and a 5-speed Getrag manual was also available that year. I mean, it just Fitchel and Sachs dampers. I mean, like, it had some really good tech in it, and a 2-liter turbo or 2.2-liter turbo, 5-speed. Like, why not?
Yeah, and then so the Maserati engine was replaced after one model year, and for 1991 they put a Mitsubishi-built V6 in it. So if you remember, this is Chrysler and Mitsubishi had very strong ties back in the 80s and 90s. Can we say Eagle Talon? Anyone?
Right.
But this just there wasn't any saving this one. It just like you said, it's a very good looking vehicle for the era.
I would drive that.
It honestly looks kind of like the Cadillac Eldorados of the era, though. I could see how.
Well, yeah.
It would get lost.
It's that boxy
Boxy wedge.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but that's what all 80s cars were. So, I mean, it's not out of the ordinary for that, but I would absolutely drive that.
Next one. No. Would you drive this one?
Probably not.
I wouldn't drive this
No.
one. It's
Not for 40K either.
Is it like Share? It's
Coda Automotive.
yeah. Like
Wow.
I don't know how this made it on the list, but the Murano Cross Tour Cabriolet did not, because I didn't even know what this was. It's a all electric sedan built in China that cost 40 grand. So betcha it only really sold in California. Betcha that's the reason why it made the list. But anyone in the rest of the world is scratching their head like, what are y'all talking about? So on that note, we shall move on.
Moving right along. This car was revolutionary.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm like this. I think this car is a better option even today than the EVs that we have.
I like the premise behind it. Yes. The execution was very poor.
Okay.
So, yeah.
As are most first generation anything.
Okay. So, well, why don't you introduce this one?
This is the Fisker Karma. And if you didn't know, it does produce 402 horsepower. It has a 0 to 60 of 6.2 seconds. It weighs 5,297 pounds, which is crazy. And it's only powered by a 2-liter turbocharged Ecotec. 402 horsepower. No, I'm just kidding. It's a hybrid.
Yeah.
And it's, I guess they would classify this one as a plug-in hybrid. All that the Turbo 4 does is charge the batteries.
Right. So think of this essentially as the fancy Chevy Volt. Volt with a V, not Bolt, not that EV crossover thing, but the Chevy Volt was the revolutionary because it employed the exact same technology. You had basically a gas generator for your electric vehicle.
Yeah.
And it had enough range to get you to and from work on a normal commute without ever having to fire the generator, which I call it a generator because it is not attached to the drivetrain.
Right.
Like it literally just powers your batteries back up. And I believe this was a missed step. I think Chevy was onto something. I think Fisker was onto something by borrowing this technology because it was the same essential platform or same idea that Chevy put into the Volt.
And this looks so much better.
It does. Very long hood.
Long hood, big hips.
Very curvaceous.
Oh, yeah.
Mustache styling.
Yeah, a little, but...
Evil henchman mustache.
Right.
So much. But, yeah, cramped interior.
I remember
sketchy on the build quality, much like Tesla's.
Yeah, I remember there being a complaint that if you were stopped in traffic and the generator kicked on and you had the windows down, that the exhaust from the generator would feed right into the into the driver window.
Yeah, because the exhaust was ducted right behind the front wheels.
Yeah,
like
between the front wheel and the front door, like it was right there. So it just kind of came right up and in the cabin.
Come on.
Well, you're saving weight by putting the exhaust right there instead of running it all the way to the back.
Not only weight, but efficiency because all the back pressure of running,
and it still only got 24 miles to the gallon.
Yeah. But we had one here in town for the longest. I couldn't get the keys to it in a timely fashion. But if you knew what this was, you kind of got excited to see it. It looked like nothing else on the road.
Yeah.
And Fisker has gone through some interesting ebbs and flows since then.
Yeah.
This car still lives on today. So this was called the Fisker brand Karma model.
Right.
This car lives on as a Karma,
Right.
which has the naming rights, I do believe, to the Raiders Stadium in Vegas.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But so you can still buy a vehicle with this styling. It's more or less the same, but more refined. Meanwhile, Fisker continues on. You and I were at the LA Auto Show, and
yes,
they unveiled the Ocean EV SUV, and you and I both really liked it.
very excited about that one.
So, just very interesting. So, yeah, this was a Fisker Karma. You can now get it as a Karma, or you can wait and get a Fisker. It's all very confusing.
Sure. Yeah.
Ford Think. Yeah, another not widely known vehicle. Glad to see Fomoco made it on the list. But
There's a few more in there.
yeah.
Oh, look, Government Motors again.
Yeah. Okay. So this one, we've got a Tesla Model Y performance video on our channel, and I'm talking in the description of the vehicle about how when most Americans think EV, they think of Tesla because of the branding and just the cool factor that Tesla brought to the table. And kid you not, one of the comments actually said, when I think EV, I think GM EV1, which is what this was. Never actually got branded outside of General Motors.
EV1, yeah.
You can never really buy one. You could only ever lease one. You had to go through Saturn stores, dealerships to do it. They were very pricey. The charging network was non-existent. The charging process was interesting, to say the least. Like, there was this big weird charger that you put into the slot in the front, but it was revolutionary in the electric vehicle realm.
It had Camaro headlights.
It was way ahead of its time. Yes, it did have Camaro headlights and very Saturn styling of the era, which I do believe is why they put it through the Saturn stores to get it.
I wouldn't bash on Saturn by saying that this was Saturn styling. This is hideous.
It ain't pretty, but it was designed by Aerodynamics. So there you go.
Yeah, well, so is an A10 Warthog.
Oh, crap. We're back to General Motors. More like...
Okay, this is one, again, I don't think should be on this list. I don't think this should be on this list.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one.
GMC Envoy XUV.
Yeah.
This was a cool idea.
Over-engineered.
Yes.
Over everything.
This was a Trailblazer with a partially retractable roof in a more luxury trim so that they could afford to sell it.
Yeah. I had a friend with the she had the Isuzu branded version of the elonged.
Yes.
The long wheelbase.
Elongated.
There you go. Elongated version of this platform. So the non-retractable roof version. But okay. So this platform.
Yeah.
Underpinned the Trailblazer.
Yep.
Trailblazer EXT, which was the long one.
Yep.
The GMC Envoy.
Yep.
The GMC Envoy, I believe it was the XL. And then this GMC Envoy XUV.
Right.
Then it was also a Oldsmobile. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name. I almost said Bravada, but that's not it. But there was an Oldsmobile version of it. There was a Saab version of it.
Yeah.
There was an Isuzu version of it, which also, like I said, my friend had the long wheelbase version of that. So that is nearly 10 different vehicles built off this platform. It's insane. And I guess GM was just flush with cash from all the badge engineering that they decided to truly do something different. And oh my God, the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like,
it's not that bad.
The Avalanche. This was the Avalanche of SUVs. So where the Avalanche was a pickup truck with a bed that you could extend, this was an SUV with a truck bed, essentially, because you could pull back the roof, you could drop the rear window,
Yeah.
open up that rear section, and treat it like a truck bed,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
throw dirty stuff back in there. And
I guess
oh,
this is actually funny because it's like the crab walk on the new Hummer EV.
mm-hmm.
It's a party trick.
Yeah, I really wonder how many people actually said, you know what, that's a great idea, forked over the immense amount of cash for this because so many moving parts.
Oh man,
It was a one-off vehicle that did not last long.
No.
I can only imagine that every single one on the road now has some version of a stuck panel somewhere. Like, oof, oof. I saw this one as dead on arrival. And like,
the commercial for it was cool.
yeah, well,
A tree stuck up out of the back of it.
yeah. But how many people actually did that? Oh my goodness. We're getting into some luxury brands here. Jaguar X-Type.
I don't think this one should be on here.
It's a rebadged Ford, and I do believe, given the Jaguar market, when the typical Jaguar shopper saw this, they just said it's gussied up. Ford, no thank you, and they moved on. I think it's beautiful. It was an entry-level Jag.
It was a full-size sedan.
Yeah.
Incredibly comfortable, incredibly plush, rode great. Is this on the Crown Vic platform, or
No,
is this
this was
the
on,
500?
No, it was on the
Taurus.
Smaller than that. It was on the Fusion Mondeo platform.
Really?
Yep.
Because it's a bigger car than both of those.
Not really. I think Jag styling kind of all blended together at the time, but this was a mid-size car. This was not a full-sizer. This was a rebadged Fusion, essentially, or Taurus.
Interesting.
Like, it just did not appeal to the Jag customer.
Yeah.
What about this next one, Mr. Fomoko?
Oh, we don't have to talk about it.
The Lincoln Blackwood.
It would have been okay just not ever having been created.
It was Lincoln's answer to the popular of the era. I've already mentioned the Chevy Avalanche, the Cadillac EXT. So GM slapped a Cadillac badge on an Avalanche for 2 generations.
Yep.
And gave us a pickup truck, essentially, based on the SUV platform that worked rather well. And Ford said, we can do that too. And they went a little too fancy and a little too weird of a way. So permanently, detachable one-piece hard tonneau cover.
Yeah.
Carpet-lined bed, which was really a trunk. Barn door style tailgate. Only available in black.
There is one of these here in town.
Yeah, I see them around. Navigator styling, because it was a F-150 Crew Max, Crew Cab, what do they call it? Super Crew?
Super Crew.
With a fancy bed on it.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Yeah.
And people knew it was a fancy F-150 and didn't really mind.
Awful.
I mean,
the proportions were just not right.
Yeah, it looked like an F-150, so I don't know. It's just the Maybach brand. So, bless their hearts, they're trying. Very old brand that the Germans, Mercedes, brought back in the mid to late 2000s as an answer to the fact that BMW Group bought, BMW ended up with Rolls, VW ended up with Bentley, and Mercedes is like, well, we're going to resurrect Maybach. And you can actually still get a Maybach, however you want to say it, as a trim of the, the GLS and the S-Class. So that S variants of the sedan and SUV, you can get the uber luxury version, which is a Maybach. So But yeah, they tried making basically a limousine,
Yeah.
a CEO limousine, and it didn't go over well.
I like them a lot. Oh, good. I get to hate on this one.
Everybody does. Everybody does.
It's awful.
It had a good premise, and it was, again, one of those things ahead of its time and poorly executed.
No. It was just awful.
Pontiac Aztec. Need we say any more?
No.
I mean, we've already got an episode talking about things we love and hate, and
it was in yellow.
Yeah.
Like the picture that they have. And it's not a good yellow.
yeah, and then all the body claddings.
Ugh.
Oh no,
This one should not be on this
absolutely
list.
not. And same with the G8 that followed it, which is branding issue more than anything. But the Pontiac GTO, the modern Pontiac GTO,
Right. The rebadged Holden Monaro, which,
yes,
I mean, it's still LS powered. It's still rear drive. This one did have independent rear end, which was interesting. I actually got to drive one of these just around the block, basically, with a 6-speed. The torque steer was wicked. Like,
yeah, this was a drift machine.
well, torque steer doesn't compute when the power goes to the rear wheels
Right.
and you turn with the front wheels.
Right.
But when you got on this thing, that rear wanted to twist and move, and it was weird. It was weird.
The GM product czar at the time, Bob Lutz, went over to Australia, saw this car, fell in love with this car, and said it needs to come to America. Brought it over with a revised front clip and rear badges and not much else. Like the interior was not even changed other than making it left-hand drive versus right-hand drive. The volume knob was even on the wrong side of the radio in this. And people complained that it wasn't true to the GTO formula because it looked like a rental car, but I would say that it was very true to the original formula in that it did look just like a normal car because you had the Pontiac Tempest of the time and the Buick Skylark of the time, which were just quote unquote normal cars. And then you had the GTO, which smoked everything on the road.
Right,
and,
but didn't look that much different.
and completely changed car culture. So, yeah, I think this very much held true to its roots, and it just didn't catch on in the modern era.
I will have one of these. At some point, I will own a modern GTO. I want one.
I would not disagree with your purchase on that one. I thought you were talking about the next item on the
No,
list. I was about to
no.
jump across and smack some sense into you. Scion / Toyota, because they killed the Scion brand, Toyota IQ, which was...
You know who absolutely went gaga over this?
Who?
James May.
Yeah. Well, this was Toyota's answer to the Smart Car,
Yep.
which is owned by the Mercedes Group.
Right.
If you've seen a smart car, you know what you're getting into here. And wouldn't you know it, it just didn't do well in the States. Because
They wanted to sell 100,000 of them. They sold 16,000.
Yeah.
That's awful.
What's even worse is they partnered with Aston Martin on this.
Which means they were way too much money.
Which they made an Aston Martin version of this and called it the Signet. Like,
Nope.
it's unbelievable that
Nope.
Aston even said yes to that. Like, what?
Nope.
What? So, yeah, complete travesty. And like I said, every time I see a smart car here in the States, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. All of our roads are big and wide, can handle full-size trucks. The fuel economy is not that much better on this versus a Honda Civic, which is bigger and the same price.
Right.
You're giving up storage. You're giving up safety for crumple zones and crash safe. Like,
Yeah.
all the perceived benefits of this are just that perceived. That I don't get it. They don't make sense.
Nope.
The Vector. You know, it's got direction and magnitude. I might have been watching Despicable Me with my 3-year-old lately. But a very angular sports car, exotic car that never really caught on. Built in 1980, had crazy looks, kind of looked like a Lambo of the time, Countach-esque styling, in that it was a giant wedge with Lambo doors.
Oh, it had a twin turbo Chevy V8 in it.
Yeah.
Good
yeah,
grief.
Yeah. Cost $125K in the 80s.
In 19... Oh.
Yeah. So no wonder it flopped.
No
but,
kidding.
Looked amazing. Would definitely turn heads down the road.
Would be 100% rad.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Would definitely. And then to round out our list,
I don't know why this one's on the list.
branding. It was just an overpriced VW. So the Volkswagen Phaeton, I believe I'm saying that correctly.
That's how I always said it. Yeah, Phaeton.
So you could get basically it was VW's answer to BMW's 7 Series or the Mercedes-Benz S-Class. And the problem is, what does VW stand for, Matt?
Volkswagen.
Which means?
People's car.
And this was anything but. That's the problem.
Well, it was big people's car.
It was rich people's car.
Well,
it was very
expensive.
expensive.
It was very expensive.
Luxury.
It was, yeah.
This would have done well solely as an Audi.
Okay. I'll give you that one for sure.
Because when you've got Jetta shoppers
right
in the same dealership as an ultra premium 7 Series competitor,
yeah, well,
it doesn't work.
You go from a Golf to a Jetta to a Passat, 22,
Yep.
28, $32,000, and then $60,000.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you that one.
So this, like I said, I mentioned Audi, shared almost nothing with the Audi version of it, including the aluminum architecture. It did come with a W12 engine, so 12 cylinders arranged in a W configuration, had
Yes,
tons
please.
of power, was very cool. I still think they're cool when I see them, which I've seen like one in my entire life in person.
Yeah, I've seen one or two of them, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. And the reason this flopped is the same reason we're not getting a new Land Cruiser. Because, again, you've got people buying Corollas and what is not the RAV4, but the one right below it that has a weird name, HRV.
Oh, yeah. CHR or HRC, whatever it is.
The weird...
The
funky,
letters.
Yes. Use names, manufacturers. Good gosh. And Toyota's about to get really crazy with all these electric BRZ, BR4X.
Yeah, whatever.
Anyway, same problem that hit the Land Cruiser was the same problem with the VW Phaeton. Because, again, you've got a very premium shopper in the same dealership as a Corolla shopper or a RAV4 shopper. And the rich clientele that want to be pampered, wanted to be taken care of. Because have you been to a BMW dealership and service department? Have you been to a Mercedes-Benz service department? Very different than a Toyota service department.
Yeah,
It's just it's not the same. So there you have it.
Lots of V8s for sale for sub $10,000.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, you could get a V8 in them. You didn't have to get the W12, but still just a shame of branding. And, yeah, it did not fit, again, the people's car persona of the brand.
Yeah.
It didn't work, and it's a travesty because of it. So there is Car and Driver's List. Matt and I have already mentioned one that we think should be on this list, and we've mentioned several that we think shouldn't even be on this list. We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts about Car and Driver's List? What are your thoughts about our thoughts of their list? What are some vehicles that you think are missing? And which vehicles on this list do you think should have been left off? Let us know by sounding off on Facebook and Instagram, both at GT Garage Talk. And go check out some of our car reviews over at YouTube, youtube.com/GT Garage Talk. And everything we do can be found at gtgaragetalk.com. Until next time, gearheads, bye.